So my dear friends and colleagues, today is the last day of our school, and thank you very much for being all these days with us. And the first speaker is Manju. Please, Manju.
Okay, thank you, Dima. So, okay, thanks everyone who is still staying on. Yes, so let me start. So the thing that I promised for today was about this moderate deviation estimates for the quadratic beta log gas. And other than that, I will also tell you about the limiting, what are these limiting Tracy-Widom distributions? How does one get the edge scaling in the quadratic beta log gas? So that also I would like to mention. So proofs are, detailed proofs are not possible for that, but the essential idea can be given. That's all. So how the description comes about. But first, let me recap what I was saying last time. So let's just quickly recall the definition. So we have the, oops. So I have the quadratic beta log gas. With the density product lambda I minus lambda j to the power of beta e to the minus beta n summation lambda I square beta n by 4 lambda I square on Rn. Actually Rn this. So I assume lambda 1 less than up to lambda n. So I order it in that way. There is a normalization constant which one can work out. I did not talk about that. But there is in the notes, there is a section on that point about the normalization constant in these things. But okay, anyway, that's beside the point now. So what we wanted was moderate deviation. Sorry. For some reason. Okay. Moderate deviation for lambda n. What is moderate deviation? We have seen that lambda n, because the overall shape of the histogram is the semicircle from -2 to 2, and lambda n converges to 2 in probability. So we look at lambda n away from 2, how big it is, and I also said that that is like n to the minus 2/3. So there are two estimates. So probability that lambda n is more than 2 plus t times n to the minus 2/3. What is that probability? And what is the probability that lambda n is less than equal to 2 minus t n to the minus 2/3. So t will always be positive for me. In fact, all these estimates make sense when t goes to infinity and t is little of n to the 2/3, little of n to the 2/3. Okay, I'm not claiming that we have the proof, which should be possible, but I'm not. Let me not make the claim that we are going to prove the estimate at this strong condition. We will prove it for maybe t equal to little of some n to the some delta, some smaller power, 1/6 or something like that. That is just the proof that I will give will work for that, but it should be true for this. We have not worked out the detail in that at that level of detail. So what are the estimates? So this probability should decay like e to the minus. So there is a so this probabilities are only precise asymptotic in the logarithmic way. That is the log of the probability. We can say what it is asymptotic to. So the upper tail is 2 beta over 3 t to the 3 half, and the lower tail is the log of the probability is asymptotic to beta over 24 t cube. It should be possible to get more precise estimates. I will mention that in the limit they have been obtained, in fact, but these were not there anywhere in the literature. Actually, it's not in this precise form. So I will mention that. So these are the moderate deviation estimates for lambda n. And you see already even forgetting these constants are optimal. That is one of the things. So upper tail has t to the 3 half. This is the power t to the 3 half. Lower tail has t cube. So this decays much faster on the left than on the right. That is one feature. But the constants that come here are also optimal. Okay, so that is actually the part of the statement. Because I write it is equal to, that means log of the probability over this exponent goes to 1. So these are actually optimal. So we will prove some parts of this. Maybe I will prove upper bound in both the cases. That is upper bound for the upper tail and upper bound for the lower tail. That's what I was planning to do. Now, why, I mean, so let me say what was known. So I mentioned that, so by the way, what can one do by, last time I began saying, so question is whether one can directly analyze the beta log gas. And do this. Is that possible? So if you look at the direct analysis of the beta log gas, where I'll just show you the density again. So we have this e to the minus beta n squared times h of lambda, where h of lambda is this energy, right? So this energy, so typically and this was the idea I mentioned when we said about, when I talked about semicircle law, the optimal configuration of lambda is which minimizes the energy. Lower energies are preferred, of course. The optimal configuration of lambdas which minimize this are very close to the semicircle distribution. Okay, so those are called some weighted Fekete points, and they are very close to the equilibrium, weighted equilibrium measure, which in the quadratic case happens to be the semicircle distribution. So if you go the direct way, it is all about analyzing this energy. So what happens in our situation? So you would have to analyze the energy under two things. So suppose you are looking for some probability lambda n is bigger than 2 plus t n to the minus 2/3. So you have to analyze the optimal energy under this constraint, that the largest point is more than this, and the optimal energy without that constraint, and then take the ratio. If you can get sufficiently good estimates, then you can get such quantities. I'm not aware of, so there are this, I think they are completely non-rigorous. At least I do not understand that they can be made rigorous. Non-rigorous methods, let me say. There are many physicists who have done this. So some names are Majumdar, Satya Majumdar, Gregory Sher, and so there are several other people involved. So they do this sort of thing. They kind of just analyze that energy business, and they write down finer and finer terms. But actually, it's not enough to just look at the optimal energy. One has to take into account the volumes of these sets also, where the energy is contained, etc. And I don't see all those analysis in those methods. So I think they are not rigorous, but answers are probably correct. So they can get lots of terms here, not just this. They can put down finer terms in all these things. But what one can do, you can imagine why one cannot do it. If the deviation is large, then one can do it.
It's 7 o'clock.
If t is epsilon n to the 2/3, suppose. So in that case, you are asking for a deviation of a fixed constant epsilon, okay? Epsilon positive, suppose. So in such a situation, this has been done. So this is a work of Benarus, Dembo, and Guinea. So they prove large deviation for lambda n. That when you look at large deviation, you are really looking at not this kind of at the fluctuation scale, or between you are looking at 2 plus epsilon. Okay, you want a whole macroscopic fluctuation there, and that is what they analyze. There, obviously, the deviation is large, so the energy calculations become easier. But still, because the tails are completely different on the two sides, what this large deviation gives you is that is only one side actually. It only gives you upper side. In other words, they get a large deviation. Okay, I don't want to explain what the large deviation rate function is and so on. Because the orders of the two things are different, the large deviation rate function will be 0 on one side and this t to the 3 half. On this scale, yeah, so one side it is 0. So that has been done. So what else has been known? So what we are doing is using the tridiagonal matrix, and there is good reason why this is a sensible method. So the same, essentially the same thing was done by, so there are three things I would like to mention. One is the paper of Ramirez, Ryder and Virag, which I will mention repeatedly in today's lecture. This is the one that really started this study of the scaling limit under using the tridiagonal method. So this is one paper. Then there is a paper of Loh Duma and Balint Virag. So in these papers, this kind of estimates is calculated in the limit. Okay. So there is no exact this estimates are not written as it is. But what have they done? Basically, as I will explain later, if you look at lambda n minus 2 times n to the 2/3, that converges in distribution to some distribution which is called the Tracy-Widom beta distribution. I will talk about why this is true using the tridiagonal matrix. I will explain this, but for a moment take this for granted that this converges in distribution. Indeed, you should expect that from here, because this is telling you that the left hand side random variables are tight. Lambda n minus 2 times n to the 2/3, they have uniform tails on the left and right, so they are tight very much. This is giving very precise estimate. So what these two papers in the Ramirez, Ryder, Virag and Duma Virag paper, they study is the tails of the Tracy-Widom. So they study probability that that is bigger than t and probability that that is bigger than less than minus t. So and estimates are precisely this kind of estimates are exactly what I have written there. So they prove these things for the this. So but that is the difference. So this is we want to do it at finite n level. So that is calculation at the limit. But actually we can follow some of the methods. Essentially, that's what we do. Okay, so that is the, but I'll explain in the finite reset. So did no one look at the moderate deviation case? So there is a paper which did, this is the paper of Brian Ryder and Ledoux, Michel Ledoux. They did consider exactly this type of moderate deviation results. So they did moderate deviations, but without the constants. Without the constant. So they did not care too much for the constant here. They wanted to get this type of behavior for the full range of t from big O of 1 to little o of n to the 2/3. So that's what they do. Okay, and that's in their paper. By the way, actually both we and they this is done for both the tridiagonal matrix that I said, as well as the tridiagonal matrix for the Legge ensemble that I wanted. Okay, so that's actually this is needed for the Legge ensemble also. So that is what they do, but they do it without constant. So in some sense, we are just combining these two demands. We want a constant as well as the finite n result. So this is the point of our this one. So when I say our, this is not written anywhere as yet. So but this is all coming from. Let me mention a motivation why we need this. So there is a paper. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, since I mentioned in the abstract, let me say why we were looking for this type of things. So I mentioned this last passage percolation problem in the abstract, which we are not going to be able to do actually. But I will just introduce the problem because there is an open problem there. So some people may be interested in knowing that rather than listening to some results. So the last passage, so the law of iterated logarithm problem. last passage percolation. Okay, so that's the problem. So let me state what the problem is. It is a very so the last passage percolation is a very well studied model. So there we have this positive quadrant of the integer lattice. And so on. Okay. So and at each vertex, so let's say this is 1, 1, and then we have only the positive quadrant. At each point, we have a random variable. Let us call it x I comma j, which are IID exponential 1. Okay, so this is called the exponential last passage. It is much of interest to put general random variables and be able to do it. A lot is unknown there. And then, so what we calculate is this thing called Tn. So Tn is, so here you take the point n comma n. Tn is the last passage time to n comma n from 1 comma 1, by which what we mean is you take any oriented path from 1, 1 to n comma n. So what is an oriented path? So it could be like this. So you can go to the right and you can go up. You cannot go to the left or down. So this is an oriented path, for example. So, and there are how many? In this case, there are 2n chosen different oriented paths. So you take all such oriented paths. And then you calculate the, so for each path, the weight of the path is the sum of the random variables along that path. Ij lying on the path. So you have to take all these 2n chosen paths. A single path is very easy. This is the sum of exponential random variables, we understand. But you are taking a maximum over all of these, and there are lots of dependencies because of intersections of paths. So this is a very complicated quantity to study, and it is greatly studied. Okay, so what is it that is known about this model? So it's some similar results of Johansson. So first of all, actually for this exponential last passage percolation, Johansson showed that Tn is in fact equal in distribution to lambda max, let me write it as lambda max of the Laguerre LUE beta equal to 2 2n. So what is this? You take the 2n by 2n. So let me just check. Is it 2n by 2n or n by n? Yeah, it is, sorry, it is n, I think. LUEN. I think it's just n. So it is the, so you may remember the Laguerre ensembles. So this is only the beta equal to 2k. So one can write it with the tridiagonal matrices. So I have it here. So you take this this tridiagonal matrix. This is Ln tridiagonal matrix where A1, B1, A2, B2, An, Bn, Bn minus 1. So AK squares are chi squares with these parameters. Bk squares are chi squares with these parameters. What are we taking here? We are taking A is 0 actually, and beta is 2. So that is that particular ensemble. Okay, so that's a specific random matrix model, and that's a specific random matrix model, and Tn has exactly the same distribution as the maximum eigenvalue of that. And that was already known to have. From this, it follows, because this result was already known by results of either Tracy Vidom or maybe it was I forgot. So yeah, Johnstone. Sorry, Johnstone. Maybe so. Tn minus 4n divided by n to the 1/6, 1/3 converges in distribution to the Tracy-Widom 2, whatever that is. So it's a specific distribution. So there is this distributional convergence of these quantities. Okay, so this is exactly a result like this, but this was known earlier because it's the special case beta equal to 2 case. So this was known before, and this is there. So this much is known about. So a big open problem in this field of last passage percolation is to prove the same limit for general IID random variables Xij. You put any conditions, it's okay. The only case where it is known are when you have exponential or geometric random variables. To my knowledge, that is it's not been improved on that. The general IID case is widely open. But what we are asking here is, this was a question that was first raised by Gil Kalai. He asked this question in Math Overflow, and then Zaitouni, Paquet and Zaitouni took this up. And then Ledoux took this up. So I will not explain what they did, or maybe I will mention, but what Ledoux did was to ask about the almost, so see these Zns are naturally coupled, right? You just take this infinite matrix, I mean, sorry, the infinite quadrant, and you have all these Xij's on the whole thing. So these Zns are naturally coupled. So what Ledoux asked was about the lim sup behavior of these Zns, just like we do in the law of iterated logarithm. So when we know Sn by square root n converges to Gaussian distribution, we ask about the lim sup and lim inf behavior of Sn over square root n. So the same thing here. So what Ledoux did, inspired by these questions in Kalai and Paquet and Zaitouni, was to look at lim sup n going to infinity. What is it that I should divide by? So when this is converging in distribution, you can expect that if you take the lim sup, you will get infinity. So question is, what should I divide by so that I get some finite positive number here? Okay, so lim sup, he showed that it is bounded between two constants, C1 and C2, which is strictly positive and finite. Okay, and so what he showed was, here you have log n to the power of 2/3. Okay, and what about the two tails are not the same, unlike in the usual law of iterated logarithm for random walks. So he also looked at lim sup of minus Zn. And here it turns out the correct thing to divide by is 1/3. Then it should be the case that you get C4 and C3, and C3 should be positive and C4 should be finite. Okay, so Ledoux proved all these things, this, and this. And this one, that C3 is positive. So this is something that we did in, so that was something that Ledoux was not able to do in his paper. And so we did it in this paper with Riddhi Pratim Basu, Shishendu Ganguly, Milind Hegde, and myself. So we proved that this C3 is positive, but still the problem is open to find this exact constants. Okay, this lim sup, there is conjectured constants which should come from these bounds. So if we, so Ledoux was using the results from his paper with Ramirez, Ryder, and Virag. So as you know, in the law of iterated logarithm also, one of the key ingredients, there are two ingredients in proving law of iterated logarithm, which Khinchin did in 1920s. So what were the two ingredients in Khinchin's? One is moderate deviation for fixed n. So there it was for Sn. Sn is sum of independent random variables. So you need moderate deviation estimates for Sn. And second is you need something about decorrelation. How, if Sn and Sm, when do they become independent? If how big should M be compared to N so that Sn and Sm become independent? In the classical law of iterated logarithm, M should be like a few constant times N. That's when they start decorrelating. So similar thing is true here. So Zn and Zm. So one of the big harder ingredients is the decorrelation. But the other ingredient is this moderate deviation estimates. We need moderate deviations. If you don't do it with the exact constants, you will prove weaker results like this. If you can do it with the exact constants, then you will get proper results. So one way, for example, with these moderate deviations, with these type of moderate deviation estimates, not just for the not for the GUE case, but also the LOE, LUE, L beta, I mean Laguerre beta ensembles. The same type of result is true for Laguerre beta ensembles also. That will give you the exact constant for one of these things for the upper side. The lower side is still we don't know to do that. In principle, the constants we know from these moderate deviations, but the decorrelation estimates in the lower side are not good enough, so we don't have that. But this one will follow from there. So anyway, this is the motivation for looking for this type of moderate deviation estimates, which are kind of precise. Okay, where we will have to let t be something going to infinity, way smaller than powers of n. Actually, we will need only powers of log n or log n or log n or log n, something. That's all. But that is where this moderate deviation estimates come. Okay, so this is the motivation, so to speak, for looking at this type of technical problem, why we care about that. Now, what did Packet and Saituni do? Let me just quickly mention it since I have talked already about this. Packet and Saituni, so this is one way of coupling these random variables which have this distribution of the maximum eigenvalue. But another way is you can just look at GUE matrix, an infinite GUE matrix, and take larger and larger submatrices and take their maximum eigenvalue. Okay, so that gives you a different coupling of these random variables which converge to Tracy-Widom distribution. Okay, that the lambda max of these n by n matrices, that's a very different coupling from the coupling provided by the last passage percolation model. And there, it turns out it is not law of iterated logarithm, but there is only law of logarithm because the decorrelation is very different. So there they proved some things like Zn over log n to some powers, 2/3 and 1/3. They get estimates for that. Anyway, that's what Packet and Zaituni did for that sort of. So and you can take different couplings. So for example, nobody has so far considered, it's something that we are looking at. You can take these tridiagonal matrices, larger and larger tridiagonal matrices. So where we have normal 0, 2s on the diagonal, chi1, chi2, etc. on the off diagonal, and you can take larger and larger submatrices and ask about the law of iterated logarithm problem. Again, we will need these type of moderate deviation estimates, precise ones, but we will also need decorrelation estimates, which are the more harder ones one has to work for. But both are needed. Okay, so that was the motivation for this moderate deviation problem. Any questions or comments on this? Okay, so if not, let me continue. So what it is I want to do. So rather than jump to the proof of this, first let me go to this Tracy-Widom, which I have been mentioning a lot. So how do these tridiagonal matrices? Okay, why do tridiagonal matrices help in doing these things, this kind of estimates? When I said earlier that these other methods are complicated or not helpful. For example, the GUE, even when beta is 2, GUE is not that helpful. But why is the tridiagonal matrix helpful? And we will also talk about the limiting statement that lambda n minus 2 n to the 2/3 converges to this. Why do these things come? So firstly, the broad reason why tridiagonal matrix is helpful. Okay, so just if I lost anybody in these digressions on why we need moderate deviation, so that is over now. So I go back to just the study of lambda n for the quadratic beta log gas. Okay, so this is what we are back to. So why tridiagonal matrix? So the tridiagonal matrix has A1, A2, etc. on the diagonal, B1, B2, etc. on the off diagonal. And then there is a scaling by 1 by square root beta n, where AKR normal 0, 2 and BK squares are chi-square. Okay, and these are all independent. Okay, all independent. That's the key thing. So why is this matrix helpful? See, when we are looking at, for example, the largest eigenvalue, so the GUE matrix has all the entries are the same, right? I mean, they are all like complex Gaussians or something, except on the diagonal. So that doesn't give you any clue. Whereas this matrix, you see the large entries are up here. Because BK squares, this chi random variable, the parameter is decreasing as you increase K. Further down here, you will have a chi 1 random variable, actually, chi beta times 1 random variable. Whereas here you have chi beta times n minus 1 random variable. So the Gaussians are same everywhere, but the large entries are up in the matrix, in the top left corner of the matrix. Therefore, the maximum eigenvalue contribution will come from the large entry. So it is really somewhere in the top left corner that you will be, which contributes to the largest eigenvalue. Okay, so that sort of clue is not even there in the GUE matrix. So this is what we will use in studying the largest eigenvalue. In fact, the entire thing about lambda n will come from the top about, we will see that about top n to the 1/3 by n to the 1/3 part of this matrix will tell you about the largest eigenvalues. Not only the largest, but second largest, third largest, etc. Will all the information is there in these large entries. The small entries will not help much. Why? I mean, so that's what is the case. Okay. So the reason, of course, is that you have, for example, one way to see why lambda n is correlated with the large entries. It's the maximum of the quadratic form T and V inner product V over V inner product V over all vectors other than the 0 vector. So this variational characterization tells you that you should try to maximize T and V inner product V. So that means you should put your V, if you take V to be a unit vector, most of the mass should use these B1, B2, etc. rather than some B's which are lying down here. That is why your top eigenvector, you should put the first few coordinates to be large. I mean, we don't know exactly what the top eigenvector is, but it should have the first few entries to be large and later ones to be small. That is what happens. So that is why this tridiagonal matrix gives you a clue about where the largest eigenvalue contribution comes from. Okay, so that was the motivation speech. So now let me, so I will postpone this proof to the later part because if I don't do the whole of it, it's okay. But I want to give an idea of where the Tracy-Widom, maybe I can do only one of them or so, but it's okay. But I want to indicate for you how the scaling limit and the distribution, this one comes. Okay, I want to indicate this one, this result, where it comes from, and what is the description of this Tracy-Widom beta distribution from this tridiagonal. This is the work of Ramirez, Ryder, and Virat. So that's what I want to explain now. Okay, so any questions or things? Okay, so if not, let's go to this. So I want to describe this Tracy-Widom distributions. So we have this Tn, which I just now wrote. But what are we looking at? We want to take the eigenvalues, subtract 2, and scale by n to the 2/3, right? So that's what I want to do. So that is nothing but, so to do that, what I will look at is 2 times, so I just reverse the sign to match with what is there in the literature, that's all. 2 times identity minus this one, that makes the eigenvalues 2 minus lambda is. Okay, so the original eigenvalues were lambda is, 2 times identity minus that will make the eigenvalues 2 minus lambda is, and then I scale up by n to the 2/3. So I am looking at this matrix. Okay, so what is this matrix going to look like? Okay, so as written, this is n to the 2/3. So let me first massage it to a reasonable form. So on the diagonals, I have this A1, A2, A3, which are Gaussian random variables. Okay. But there is also a square root beta n here, 1 by square root beta n. So maybe I have here, I write A2 over square root beta n. What do I have here? So B1, let us recall, B1 is a chi n minus bk is chi beta times n minus k. And as I said earlier, I used this thing that we can roughly write bk as square root of beta times n minus k. That is roughly the location of that. Plus, when you subtract that, you have a Gaussian distribution approximately. So 1 by square root 2 times, let me just write psi k. So I will just use this approximation and write it as psi k, where psi k is approximately normal 0 with variance 1/2. This is from the chi distribution. This is well known. Okay, so this is very simple. But obviously, this is only when the parameter is large. So this is when k is n minus k should be large. So I should not apply this to k close to n. But we are not going to go anywhere close to k close to n. So we don't need to worry. We will apply it for k which are up here. So n minus k will be very large. So we will use this approximation. So when you divide this by square root beta n, what do we see? So we will see square root of 1 minus k over n plus psi k over square root beta n, right? So that's what I have here. Here, this entry will be square root of 1 minus 1 over n plus psi 1 over root beta n. And this entry will be the same except that I have square root 1 minus 2 over n plus psi 2 over root beta n and so on. So this is what we have. Okay, so now, okay, one more approximation. I should have done that here. So one more small approximation that I will make is, again, I will be taking k very small. So I will just write square root of 1 minus k over n as 1 minus k over 2n by just expanding the square root, Taylor expansion. When k over n is small, this is approximately 2. So these things, let me just write them as square root 1 minus 1 by n. I will, and square root 1 minus 2 by n. I will write them as 1 minus 1 by 2n, 1 minus 2 by 2n, and so on. Okay. So what are we actually trying to do? Okay. So let me first say that. So what is it that we are trying to do? See, this is a general philosophy in probability that you should take the limit of the largest possible object that you can. So for example, what are we looking at? We are looking at for the limiting distribution of lambda n minus 2 times n to the 2/3. But that is very specific question. Something larger than that would be to take lambda I minus 2 times n to the 2/3 for all the largest eigenvalues, largest, second largest, etc. Even bigger object than that is to take the limit of the matrix itself. So ever since Donsker proved his functional limit theorem, this has been generally the philosophy in probability that you take the try to take distributional limit of the largest possible object for which you can presumably take. Then all the things that you want are small features of this large object. Okay, so if you have some big object converging in distribution, various features of it will converge in distribution. That is the idea. Now the thing is that, so overall idea here is just this. If you were to take GUE matrix, GUE n, there is no meaning to taking the limit as n going to infinity. You may write, okay, so it is an infinite GUE matrix, x11, x12, etc. You can write this, but this is not a very useful thing. This is not a good operator on any space or anything like that. This is not useful. However, our Tn beta is a second order difference operator. Since it's a tridiagonal matrix, when you see how it operates on vectors, when you apply this to a vector and take the kth coordinate, it will involve the k minus first, kth, and k plus first coordinate of that vector. Therefore, it's like a second order difference operator. And in the limit, we can expect that it will converge to a second order differential operator. This is what is going to happen. So we will show that this, in an appropriate sense, this entire operator itself will converge to a second order random differential operator. And the description, that eigenvalues of that limiting operator will be the limiting eigenvalues of this. That will be that's the description that we are aiming towards. Okay, so towards that end, I am doing all this. I am trying to massage the matrix into a reasonable form where we can see that the limit exists. I want to show you why the limit exists. Okay, so once we have done all this, what I want to say is that we can write this as a sum of three things. Okay, sorry, there is a mistake still. I forgot to do the 2 times identity minus this. Okay. Yeah, what is happening is, okay, so sorry, I forgot that. So let me just put minus this plus 2 times identity. Since I forgot to write that, so that I will write now here. So the 2 will come on the diagonal and all these entries will be negated. Okay. So I will write this as a sum of 3 matrices. So what are those 3 matrices? First one is the following. I have 2 on the diagonals, and that is coming from this 2. So there will be an n to the 2/3 outside. N to the 2/3 is outside. This 2 on the diagonal come from this. And then there is this 1 on the off diagonal, right? So this 1. Similar thing will be here by symmetry. So they will get negated now. So I will take this 2 minus 1 minus 1, 2 minus 1 minus 1, and so on. This is the first part of the matrix. So this is one matrix that we are writing. Okay, what else is left? So what else is left? There are these terms 1 over 2n, 2 over 2n, 3 over 2n. Let's forget the random parts still, which are these ai's and xi's. The deterministic part itself has one more thing, which is 1 over 2n, 2 over 2n, and all this, but we are going to negate it, right? So this will have n to the 2/3. What do we have here? We have 1 over 2n, 2 over 2n, and so on. So let me just write 1, 2, 3, etc. and take the 1 over n outside. Okay, so this is the second part, but when I divide by n, what happens? I am left with n to the 1/3 here. So n to the 2/3 divided by n will give me n to the 1/3. So that's the second part. So you see, these two are very nice matrices. This is the discrete Laplacian matrix, and in a appropriate scaling limit, this will become the second derivative. This one is multiplying. It's almost like instead of 1, 2, 3 on the okay, but I forgot. So I have 2n outside here. Sorry, this is 1 over 2n, 2 over 2n. So I also have an extra factor of 2 here. So this thing, I will explain what this will happen. This is almost like a diagonal matrix. If these things were on the diagonal 1, 2, 3, it would be like multiplication by x. That's what this operator will converge to. And then there is a remaining part, which is the random part. That's where all the randomness is. So let's write what that is. So what are the random parts? So I pull out the square root beta n. So ak over square root beta n and psi k over square root beta n are there. When I pull that out, so what am I left with? So I have a square root beta in the denominator. And I have n to the 2/3 over square root n, which is actually n to the 1/6. Okay, and I am left with a1 psi 1, psi 1, a2, psi 2, psi 2, etc. Okay, so we have this Tn is like operates like this. It's a sum of 3 things. Okay, now I want to say what. So let us look at, so how does Tn operate on a, I mean, sorry, not Tn, but the scale matrix. So let us call this maybe Tn hat. Let me call it the Tn hat. So how does Tn hat operate on a vector? So this is what we want to understand. So Tn hat, so for that we will think of vector as also a discretization. We think of Vk as so a vector is indexed by 1, 2 up to n. So we will think of it as the values of a function at 1 over n to the 1/3, 2 over n to the 1/3, 3 over n to the 1/3, etc. A vector is seen as a function. If you want, you can interpolate by straight lines. It doesn't matter. But a vector is treated as a function at this level of discretization. This is what I would like to do. Once we do that, we will see the operations of these three things and what they become in the limit. Okay. So let me give names to this. So this one, let me call ln, this whole operator. This one, let me call mn. And this one, let me call wn. Okay, what do ln, mn, and wn do? If I want to do Tn hat v, I will be doing lnv, mnv, and wnv. So I need to understand that. What is lnv of k? So lnv of k, the kth coordinate, is what? It is, so you are taking v, so this is just a vk plus vk minus 2vk minus vk minus 1 minus vk plus 1 whole multiplied by n to the 2/3, right? But what is that? That is just f of, if I think of v as a discretization of a function, f of k plus 1 over n to the 1/3 minus 2 times f of k over n to the 1/3, that is plus f of k minus 1 over n to the 1/3 whole divided by 1 by n to the 1/3 squared. So this is the second difference. So this is the difference between f of k. This is the second difference at three closely placed points. So this you see is very close to the second derivative at okay, sorry, this is the negative of this. I switched the sign. This 2 was, this is the negative of this. So this will become minus f double dash at this point, k over n to the 1/3. So this v was like the function f. V was f of k over n to the 1/3. So the function f goes to the second minus of the second derivative of itself. That's what ln does to a function in this discretized way. So in the limit, ln will become second derivative is sort of acceptable. What does mn do? Similarly, if you look at mnvk is just doing this. So this will be 1 by 2 times n to the 1/3. And then I have mnvk will be something like, okay, it will be probably k times vk plus 1 plus k minus 1 times vk minus 1. Since diagonal entries are 0 here, so k plus 1 will multiply vk plus k will multiply vk plus 1. So something like this, which is for all intents and purposes, we can write they are essentially the same. So we'll just write it as 2 times k vk over 2 times n to the 1/3, which is nothing but yeah. So what did I do here? Sorry. So maybe I missed something. No. I am right. Okay. So there is no problem. So this is k over n to the 1/3 times f of k over n to the 1/3. Right? That's all it is. K over n to the 1/3 times f of k. So the function f is going to, what is this? It is going to x f of x. So this is just the multiplication operator by x. That is what mn is going to behave like in the limit. So that leaves the last one. What does the last one do? N to the 1/6, this thingy. By the way, if I'm not being clear, please do interrupt. I mean, I'm happy to explain. if I'm not explaining very clearly. I'm just giving you a heuristic what this operator, what the limiting differential operator will be. So for ln and vn, they are kind of straightforward. Ln becomes second derivative negative of, and mn becomes multiplication by x. What does wn become? Wn vk will have some terms. Okay, so it will have n to the 1/6 over square root beta times what all do we have there? If you look at, there is k on the ak vk plus psi k vk plus 1 plus psi k minus 1 v k minus 1. Okay. Now what is this thing doing? Okay, so roughly speaking, this is it's better to, so to see what this is doing, it is better to take partial sums of this. Okay, so if you take partial sums of this, so if you consider k equals 1 up to L, what does that become? It is this n to the 1/6 over square root beta is there. Let me just collect the terms by Vk. Okay, so what will Vk come with? Vk will come with Ak in the kth term and plus psi k minus 1 once and yeah, something like this. Sorry, no, I don't want to. Yeah, okay. How do I want to write? Sorry. Yeah, let me. Yeah, so it is okay, but maybe I just write it like this so that it is more clear. So it is, yeah, so let me just say what it becomes, okay, rather than make a big deal of it. So this is like, it's, you can write it approximately like 2 times ZKVK. Okay, where ZKs are IID normal. So that's what, because you just combine the psi k's together. So this will look like this. In other words, the partial sum looks like this Vk is being integrated against this white noise, Zk into the 1/6 over this. So overall, what this is like, this is, one can write this as just if L is t times n to the 1/3, okay, or let's write it as x times n to the 1/3, then this will look like 0 to x f of u dw of u, where w is standard Brownian motion, okay, with a 2 over square root beta outside. So that's what one needs to. So this basically, this is like white noise. This Zk is white noise. We are taking Vk Zk. So Zk white noise you think of as differences of Brownian motion, and you integrate by parts to see that it is the or no, it's just differences of Brownian motion. So we have, this is the function f. V is the function f integrated against differences of Brownian motion, and this is exactly what you need. N to the 1/6 is what goes to make it dw of that. So this whole thing is like this. So this is how it operates. So overall, this Wn, so what is Wn doing? Wn is, what is it doing? We can think of it as taking the function f to f times dw. That's what is happening. Okay, so that is the overall description of this matrix. So when one makes some of these things rigorous, so the conclusion, after some steps, the conclusion is 2 minus 2 times identity minus Tn into, okay, sorry about that. No, I anyway called it Tn hat, right? So let me just write Tn hat. In the, when looked at it as operating on functions, discretized functions, so Tn hat converges in distribution to this thing called h beta, which is an operator, which is minus. So how does h beta operate on a function? It operates as minus f double dash plus x f of x plus 2 over square root beta times w dot of x fx, where w dot is the derivative of Brownian motion, always to be interpreted in this stochastic integration sense. You have to do the Ito integral. So this whole thing is to be interpreted in the integrated form. So what this means is really that h beta f, the quadratic form, is integral of minus f double dash of x times f of x. So these are functions on 0 infinity. Okay, so this is functions on 0 infinity. You have to put conditions on what is the Hilbert space on which it is operating, etc. So, but what does this mean? It formally is this, but strictly this is, you have to interpret it in this way. The first two terms are fine, there is no problem. X f square of x plus but the last one is interpreted in the Ito sense. F of x, sorry, f square of x dw of x. So this is how you interpret the quadratic form. Okay. So this is the thing that Ramirez, Ryder, and Virag introduced, and this is called the stochastic Airy operator. And this describes completely the limiting distribution of eigenvalues. So this is a random operator, and what they show is, so I will just write down, what they show is that this h beta has discrete spectrum bounded below. Almost surely. So almost surely it's a random operator, almost surely. So it has some eigenvalues. There is a first eigenvalue, then there is a second eigenvalue, third eigenvalue, and so on. Okay. So these are random variables. So these are the eigenvalues. There is a lowest one, and then there are etc. And in fact, these theta j's are given by, so this theta 1 is the infimum of, so all these Rayleigh-Ritz formulas and so on work. H beta f over, I have not said what the norm is. So in the appropriate Hilbert space, I have not said what the exact space where we are operating is, but it is this, and theta 2 can be given a variational form and so on. And lastly, the point that what happens to the lambda n's. So if you look at lambda n minus 2 times n to the 2/3. So here we had a switching of sign because we considered 2 minus t, whereas we have to consider t minus 2. So this will converge in distribution to, so the whole Tn converges to h beta in a reasonable sense. What is the reasonable sense? Let's say just the conclusion of it, it converges in distribution to minus theta 1 because the sign is different. And in fact, the second eigenvalue will converge to minus theta 2 and so on. This entire process will converge to this entire process, and this process is called the Airy beta process. Okay, so this is the description of the limiting thing. So, and you can study this theta s using this stochastic area operator. So this is how the scaling limit is done in the using the tridiagonal matrix. And you see that the structure of tridiagonal matrix is used. So because it's a second order difference operator, it becomes a second order stochastic differential operator in the limit. And yeah, okay. And what is happening here, if you see in the limit, it was function of k over n to the 1/3. So only k going up to about n to the 1/3 or a little beyond that will matter. So that means the later parts of the matrix are not going to matter. So what matters is only the top about n to the 1/3 by n to the 1/3 part of this matrix. So that's what comes into play in the limit. In the limit, the rest of it just goes away. When you scale at the edge, when you do bulk, it is a completely different story. But when you're doing at the right edge, then all that goes away, and only the top n to the 1/3 by n to the 1/3 part matters. Any questions or comments about this? This is the description of the limiting eigenvalues. So it is different from the original description, which was the Tracy-Widom description. So how was Tracy-Widom 2 defined? Tracy-Widom 2 or Tracy-Widom 1, when Tracy and Widom studied this, they defined it, they gave a differential equation for the distribution function. So they said, okay, the limiting distribution has this density, and the density or distribution function satisfies some differential equation, blah, blah, blah. It is the solution to a differential equation. Actually, this is a rather different description. It's this is actually useful for studying things. Okay, so that's the what I wanted to say about this. Are there any questions or comments on this?
Maybe just one question.
Yes.
You explained how last passage percolation is related to these triangular matrices.
Yeah.
And what comes to my mind is another problem which is somewhat similar, this random assignment problem.
Okay.
You probably know about it. I just wonder whether there exists some approach to that problem related, similar to this one.
Well, the random assignment problem is very different type of problem. So the random assignment problem is actually quite different actually. So I think its structure and everything is rather different. So there you have, so there is a limiting object. I mean, so there it's very, okay, I do not see any link with this. For example, all this n to the 2/3 and all this type of anomalous variance, which is showing up in all these things in what is called the Capizzi class. These things are not there, to my knowledge, in the random assignment problem. In the random assignment problem, there is a different kind of limit, a local limit, which is this assignment problem on this infinite tree, the Poisson-weighted infinite tree of Aldous. But okay, I do not see any link between these.
Okay, thank you very much. So sorry.
No, I do not know. Maybe there is, but I do not know.
It just looks similar. You also sum up exponential random variables.
But there
from,
is something
from the matrix, and the only difference is that here you have 2 to the power n or something, or there is a different way to use paths or so.
Right,
but it's somehow similar.
No,
there is a similarity of the problems, but maybe it's just superficial. Sorry.
No, but the thing is, there is the geometry here. Okay, you can say there is a similarity, but the thing is the geometry actually. So this is a bipartite setup. So there is no geometry here. This is a bipartite setup. So there is no geometry here. Here there is the two-dimensional geometry. That makes all the difference, big difference. This is, in some sense, there is no geometry. Everything is connected to everything, and that is rather different. So, for example,
you can make another picture. You may draw a matrix and then go along the paths that form the determinant.
But there is no two-dimensional geometry there, right?
Yeah. There is no. It's just a group.
So that makes a difference. For example, here in this problem, only the smallest weights are used actually. All the smallest exponentials are used. And here there is no way you can do such things.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So okay. So this is the description. Okay. Are there any other questions? There's one more small thing that I wanted to say. The only place where this limiting operator uses the randomness is in saying that this looks like this, where ZKSR IID normal 0, 1, right? So in the limit, you get this Brownian motion. So what Ramirez, Gaider, and Virag showed is that anytime you have this, so you write your scaled random matrix as a sum of three things. Ln is the same, Mn is the same, and this remaining stuff should be such that the partial sums converge to Brownian motion. That is what is required. And once you have that, then the same limiting operator arises. This is the universality thing. And when we look at general V, so I mentioned this for general V log gas, we have a random matrix which has a completely different, this has this distribution which is complicated because the entry distributions are not independent. However, what is required to show about it is this central limit theorem, that you have to somehow say that the entries of that matrix, after you do this, after you subtract off this, okay, where did I go? After you subtract off these two parts, what remains will satisfy this convergence to partial sums converge to Brownian motion. That's what is required. Okay, so let me leave that. So in the remaining part, let me just indicate how you do the bound for the tails. I mean, so this moderate deviation. So that was the part that I claimed that I would show you. That's what, let me just show. So let's say this one. So how do you show an upper bound? Let me try to show the upper bound in both parts. Probably I don't have time, so I will maybe do only the lower bound. Maybe I'll only do a sketch. So upper bound for the lower tail. So that is probability lambda n minus less than equal to this I want to show. So what I want to show is upper bound. I want to show that this is at most e to the minus 1 plus little o of 1 beta over 24 t cube. Okay, so how do we show something like this? So the idea is very simple actually. This is the simplest of all. So see, lambda n, since it is the maximum, so if I take any particular vector, so let me tell you what the vector is also. Actually, fix any v. Okay, so then it's enough to take, so lambda n is greater than equal to TNV inner product V over the norm of V square. Okay, so this is there. Therefore, to show an upper bound like this, it's enough to show probability TNV over V inner product V less than equal to that thing 2 minus t into the minus 2/3. You want to show is at most, if that probability is itself less than this much, let me skip the 1 plus little of 1 beta t cube over 24. If I can show this, then obviously this also will follow, right? So since lambda n is anyway larger than this, if this cannot be small, lambda n cannot be small. So for this to work, I mean, to be able to do this, you have to make a good guess of V. So what V to take and how do you analyze this probability? Okay, so first, why is it possible to analyze?
It's 8 o'clock.
Okay, so I have 10 minutes, I guess. So let me say, the thing is why it helps. Because for fixed V, so what is TNV inner product V? It is this 1 over square root beta n AKVK square up to n plus 2 times k equals 1 up to n minus 1 bk vk plus 1, right? So it's just the quadratic form is given by this, because the matrix is ak with on the diagonal, ak over root beta n on the diagonal and bk over. So this is what we have. The thing is these are normal CO2. And bk, let's do that approximation and just write it as square root beta into n minus k plus psi k, where psi k is a Gaussian. So if you do that, then this whole thing is actually Gaussian. Okay, if I just make this assumption that bk is square root beta times n minus k plus psi k, it is okay if I'm not going to, if my vk will put weights only on the small case, then there is no problem, we can do this. So this, for any fixed v, this is actually a Gaussian random vector, right? So with what is the mean? The mean will be just coming from, this has mean 0, this psi k's have mean 0, so the mean comes only from this part. So the mean is actually 2 over square root beta n summation square root beta times n minus k vk plus 1. This is the mean, and the variance will be, well, so we get 1 over beta n. Since the AKs have variance 2 times summation vk to the power 4. And here, what are the variances? Again, I have 2 times psi k. So that is 4 psi k. Psi k has variance half. So 4 times that will again be 2 times summation vk square vk plus 1 square. Okay, so this is the variance. So you can just analyze this probability, right? So if you take v for any fixed v, we can calculate this deviation probability very easily. So for any v, I mean, this probability we can calculate because it's a Gaussian calculation, Gaussian distributed probability less than something. So question is, what is the right V to choose? Okay, what V to choose? So by the square root, I mean, so earlier I gave this heuristic of at the edge that behaves like square root. So it turns out that you just choose Vk to be square root of m minus k for k less than equal to m and 0 for k bigger than m. Okay, so where m is actually t times n to the 1/3. Okay, so this is the vector you take. So the square root comes from this square root behavior. You just plug in that and you calculate all these variances and you get this probability from the Gaussian tail. That's it. So these are all just, you can arrive at this by optimizing. If you realize this is the vector you take, you can optimize over m and you will see that this is the optimal t to optimal m to take and you get this probability. That's all. So it's so simple to get this. This is the simplest proof I know for this kind of stuff. So the similar method will apply on the upper tail if you are trying to look at lambda n greater than equal to 2 plus t times n to the minus 2/3. For the lower bound, to get the lower bound, e to the, here it is e to the minus 2 beta by 3 t to the 3/2. For the lower bound, the game is similar. Because now you want to get a lower bound for this probability, and lambda n is the maximum of these things. So if for a given vector that probability is high, then for lambda n also that probability will be high. So I will not tell you what the vector v here is, but you have to choose a different random vector because the deviation is on the right side, and that different vector. You have to think what the correct vector is, and this is basically there in the paper of Ramirez, Ryder, and Virag. So we can discretize that and get the answer here. So that is how you handle these tails. The so the other two tails are complicated. The other two tails will have the maximum. You can't, if you wanted to get the lower bound for the lower tail or the upper bound for the upper tail, then this method will not work. So let me quickly, in the remaining 5 minutes, indicate how we do the upper bound for the upper tail. So here we do not entirely do this is not a fully tridiagonal method, but the tridiagonal helps in a kind of sneaky way. So this, let me just tell you what the fact is. So it was already done for beta equal to 1. So for beta equal to 1, it is a result of Ledoux that expected trace of t and beta to the power 2p. So for high moments, he had got a bound already, which looks something like this. I will write down the terms and then explain. P to the 3/2 over n maybe. Okay, it doesn't, this term will not matter. What matters is this one, e to the something like p cube over, sorry, is it 6n square? Just give me a moment. Let me just check. Yeah, sorry, 3n square. So this is actually 3n square, something like 3n square. And then 2 to the 2n. So so this is something that Ledu had done, and it's actually this is a question I have about this type of thing. Should be possible to do from tridiagonal matrices, but we don't know how to do it. I mean, it seems tempting to be able to do this from tridiagonal matrices, but the way this was done, Ledu did the corresponding thing for beta equals to 2 first. And there you have similar terms, except that here you have e to the p cube over, I think, 12n square, 2 to the 2n. Okay, so you have this kind of bounds. So it should be possible, maybe one thinks from tridiagonal matrix, but we don't know how to do that. So, but this is done by using the actual density, the determinant of structure and so on, or what are called from the Herer-Zagier relations. So, and we were struggling for a while for what to do for general beta. And then I have a student, Yaneshwar, he found a very sneaky trick, which is quite nice. So, which uses the tridiagonal. So his idea was simply this, that if at least it works only for beta greater than equal to 1. So the claim is that if you take expectation trace of Tn beta to the power 2p, so this is, so he showed that this is smaller than trace of T. You change the matrix size to n beta, but change the parameter beta to 1. Okay, so this is what, and this you get a bound from here because beta equal to 1, so you get a bound. So this is bounded by c into 1 plus whatever, this doesn't matter. So here you get e to the p cube, but the matrix is this, so you get 3 beta squared n squared. Okay, so you get a bound like this. So how do these things help? This helps just by Chebyshev inequality. Okay, so you just use this with p to be, so you just use that lambda n to the power 2p less than equal to trace of the matrix to the power 2p, and then you have to choose the right p to optimize by this exponential bound. You just use the Chernoff bound by using the expectation of this. It turns out something like this, beta root t n to the 1/3 or 2/3. Okay, sorry, I forget this. What is the, so 2/3, I think. So this works. So this will give you the upper bound that we wanted, which is that e to the minus. So this leads to e to the minus 2 beta over 3 n to the 3/2 upper bound. Sorry, t to the 3/2 upper bound. So I will just take half a minute and explain this trick. Okay, so is it okay, Dima?
Yeah, sure, Manju.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just explain this. So this is a very simple and but very nice trick. So see, when we calculated these powers, expected powers of t and beta, what we had was, we can think of this as integers with loops, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 integers with loops, and the weight here is bk, b2, I mean, so b1, b2, b3, etc. And the weights here are a1, a2, a3, etc. What is bk here? Ak's are normal 0, 1. Bk is actually, bk is chi beta times n minus k. So this is what is there. But what happens in this other matrix? So this is when T n beta, and this is in T n beta 1. Here the weights are the same, A1, A2, A3, etc. But here you have B1 tilde, B2 tilde as the weights. But what is Bk tilde? Bk tilde is chi beta n minus k. This is beta times n minus k, which is beta n minus beta k. And this is beta n minus k. And you see that when beta is larger than 1, these weights are smaller stochastically than this. That's enough to get this inequality. If you look at path by path, the weight of any expected weight of any path here is less than equal to the expected weight of the corresponding path here. If you don't take P larger than n, that is because this is a beta n by n matrix, this is beta n by beta n matrix. So that's how you get this. So this is a very sneaky trick, which now helps us to extend this to all beta greater than equal to 1. Okay, so that, but the interesting question is also how to get this, can we directly get this type of estimates from the tridiagonal? That is something that I would like to see. In particular, whether this type of Haber-Zagier relations are there for general beta, either exact regression or recursive inequalities, which is what Ledoux uses. Okay, so that finishes my time. I hope I conveyed a little bit of the flavor of the tridiagonal random matrix models. Okay, I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Manju. Are there any questions to the lecture? I have a question concerning the last passage percolation. You said that the only distribution for which something is known is exponential, right? Because of the connection.
And geometric, yeah.
Yeah, and geometric, yes. Because of the connection with LV, yes?
Yes.
But as far as I remember from your first or second lecture, there is a three-diagonal representation for the LV, not only for the exponential, but for the gamma distribution, right?
Sorry, so the connection for what?
The representation for the Laguerre unitary ensemble in terms of three-diagonal matrix for the gamma distribution, right? It was, yes.
No, this is, yeah, so this is the, right. So we have this for this, we have a tridiagonal random matrix, that's correct. Yeah. But none of that, we don't know if any of that connects to has anything to do with the last passage percolation.
So yeah, so it is no, yes, it was my question. So it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the gamma distribution, right?
No, well, let me tell.
This what was found by Johansson. It does not work for the gamma distribution.
Well, for gamma distribution, no. You mean the weights are gamma distributed?
Yes.
Okay, are they known for that? I think not, but I'm not 100% sure. Sorry. So so what he does is for geometrics, and exponential comes as the limit of geometrics. But whether particularly for the gamma with gamma distribution, it is known, I do not know for sure. Okay, I do not know. Okay, so there was something else which is I didn't mention, which we use, that there is a different connection, which is that if you take the last passage, not from 1,1 to this line, this is k plus l equal to n. So the maximum, but anyway on that. So it is the maximum of Tn over all these. Then it is exactly related to Laguerre orthogonal ensemble with some 2n minus 1 cos 2n type matrix. So it's kind of mysterious why these things happen, but there is that connection. But for gamma distribution, I at the moment do not know.
Okay, thank you. More questions, please. Okay, if not, so Manju, thank you very much for all your lectures. They are very clear and at the same time are very deep. So we are all lucky to that we had you as a lecturer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
okay.
Okay.